Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm sure all of you have already met Soumitri, or most of you have in any case. So Soumitri has been teaching at RMIT for almost 20 years now. Is that right, Soumitri? Yeah. And he's also taught in Israel, India, Netherlands, Turkey, Portugal, and France. And he's been working in the fields of social innovation and health co-design, where he focuses upon the contemporary sharing economy, looking at collaborative consumption, collaborative production, and peer-to-peer production. And he also has an active interest in community work and people's ways of learning. Samatri, over to you, and let's see what you have to share with us.
Thank you, Vanya. Thank you for the invite. I'm going to jump in and do a little bit of reading. So my sort of contribution today is to essentially talk about two books and one film, or a documentary film. So just to check on that, you've all got the PowerPoint that I sent to Vanya a few days ago? Yes?
Do you all have access to that PowerPoint? It's on the group. Should be able to see it there.
Oh, sorry, is it on Canvas or on Teams?
On Teams. With the invite. Do you see it?
Yeah, it's just under it's under the replies.
Yeah. Great.
All right. Anyway, so my sort of plan was not to share screen, so we can do share face, and potentially you can have that coming up on your screens. You can look at it and stuff like that, but a little while later. Benjamin, did you have a question, or you just like to raise your hand? Okay. I'm just going to take that as I love to raise my hand. Hey, thank you all for coming and for potentially participating in this conversation. Vanya's invited me, and she's got a plan of inviting a whole bunch of people to come and talk to you. All right. I don't see a chat panel on the side for some reason. Is there no chat?
You can open it by going up the top. It's the little speech bubble.
Yeah, I'm used to seeing a speech bubble, but I'm currently not seeing a speech bubble. So I'm just going to assume you've locked me out of it, but I don't need it then. Okay, so just a bit about myself. I'm a mechanical engineer. I have a postgrad qualification in industrial design, and I have a PhD in social science. I have been at RMIT longer than most of you have been on this planet. I teach in industrial design. I primarily coordinate a cluster of courses in first year called My First 6 Months, which is about essentially allowing you to show us how awesome you are, and in the process of that, becoming even more awesome. So it's essentially based on contemporary cultures of pedagogy, which is about peer-to-peer learning. And if you want to know more about peer-to-peer learning, you can go and look at 45 Silicon Valley, or you can look at MIT Learning Laboratory. Or if you're really interested in accelerated learning, Elon Musk has got a school that he set up for his students, and I think he's got some for his kids. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, it's a school called Ad Astra, and it's essentially about the fact that people are amazing, and you just need them to have the opportunity to sort of learn by themselves and from each other. So I'm a great believer in the fact that the best learning happens when there are no teachers in the room. And without further ado, I'm going to disappear. All right. So what I'm essentially going to do is I want to read from a book that I have recently read, and the book is there in that presentation. I'm happy for you to download that presentation and keep it and use it in whatever way you want to use it. I have purposely not put titles to all the different slides because that ruins the visual quality of those slides. Okay, so the first book that I'm looking at, the second book I'm not going to talk about very much, but the first book is a book called The Islands of Abandonment. So that I'm talking to you today about the notion of abandonment. I'm part of a group of 7 people, 3 of whom are in Europe, 4 in Australia, and we're a group that have received a grant to look at, let's say, biodiversity in urban spaces. Another word for that is rewilding. So we've been given money to do a rewilding project over 5 years. And at the start of the project, which is now, I'm profoundly confused. And what I'm saying is, what should one actually do in this project? And I think we need to sort of take a step back and have a look at the possibilities here. Okay, so if I'm reading too fast or if it's not clear, put your hand up and shake it vigorously and I'll turn and I'll gaze at you. For now, we're going into this. So this is a book, Islands of Abandonment. In this book, so I'm reading from the book now, in this book we will travel to some of the eeriest and most desolate places on Earth. I have the book on Kindle, so I think it's about $15 or something. It's quite a spectacular read, if that's could be of interest to you. In no man's land between razor wire fences where passenger jets rust on the runway after 4 decades neglect. Here the woods so arsenic that no trees can grow there. An exclusion zone thrown up around the smoldering ruin of a nuclear reactor. A dwindling sea upon whose deserted shoreline a beach has formed on the bones of the fish that once swam in its waters. Are we good? Yes. I'm sort of reading it slowly so that you can go to sleep. What links these disparate sites is their abandonment, whether due to war or disaster, disease or economic decay. Each location has been left to its own devices for years or decades. Over time, nature has been allowed to work unfettered, providing invaluable insight into the wisdom of environments in flux. If this is a nature book, it is not one that rhapsodies about the allure of the untouched. This is, to an extent, from necessity. Fewer and fewer places in the world, if any, can lay claim to being truly pristine. Recent studies have found microplastics and hazardous man-made chemicals, even in Antarctic ice and deep sea sediments. Aerial surveys of the Amazon basin reveal earthworks shrouded in forest that form the last remains of entire civilizations long passed away. Man-made climate change threatens to transform every ecosystem, every landscape on the planet, and long-lived artificial materials have etched our signature indelibly upon the geological record. There is no argument that some places are, relatively speaking, far less impacted than others. What draws my attention, however, is not the afterglow of pristine nature as it disappears over the horizon, but the narrow band of brightening sky that might indicate a fresh dawn of a new wild, as across the world, ever more land falls into abandonment. So this notion of the fact of abandonment goes hand in hand. So in Cal Wilson's case, she is an author. And there's a photograph of Cal Wilson in her blue dress in an abandoned site. So essentially, the humans on this planet are sort of cancerous. They've gone everywhere and they've gone and built. But what is starting to happen is, in the record of abandonment, is that they go build and then they walk away to go and do something somewhere else. So the planet is filled with a lot of these sites or abandoned sites. And what she's sort of very hopeful of and very excited about is that if you walk away and give it enough time, it gets, the animals and the plants and the trees and so on, they come back. So there is a case to be made for rewilding. Now, you can only look at abandoned sites, or I am inviting you to look at abandoned sites, not with a critical eye, not with a sort of a negativity, but I'm sort of inviting you to look at it in a more poetic way, that it's spectacularly beautiful. These are just ruins. So where she stands, the room where she's standing is a bit grotty, and it probably smells. And the contrast between her standing there and that room is quite spectacular. One of the places on the planet which has the most spectacular sites of abandonment, side by side with human life, is the United States. So full cities have sort of been spectacularly abandoned, and people continue to live there. So the city of Detroit, which is the car manufacturing center of, or used to be, of the planet, but if you go to the CBD of Detroit, then you might be working in a building, but the two buildings on either side are abandoned. So the whole city is essentially pockmarked, or is more than 50% abandoned. And so you'll go somewhere, you'll get a coffee, and the shop is there, but everything else is an abandoned building. And so it is this contradiction about the world that you live in. Now, for years, the industrial design program was on Elizabeth Street. So on the corner of Elizabeth and Latrobe was this enormous building that for about 40 years was abandoned in the middle of the city. And I think it was about 10 years ago, the mayor of Melbourne had a bit of a dummy spit, said, this is completely disgusting. You can't allow a building to rot in the middle of the CBD, because if you do that anymore, we're going to fine you, we're going to do this. And then very quickly the building changed hands. And I don't know about the upper stories, but certainly at the bottom, it's now full of fancy cafes. All right. So the interesting thing is, I'm going to now skip to come to another part. We are in the midst of a huge self-directed experiment in rewilding. So it's quite fashionable, and when things are fashionable, funding agencies are happy to give you a bit of money. So one's ended up with a grant on a very fashionable topic. The most fashionable thing you're looking at today. We are in the midst of a huge self-directed experiment in rewilding, because abandonment is rewilding. So when you're looking at rewilding, you're saying, oh, this is really fancy and this is what stuff that people are doing. But if this is rewilding, then the underside of it is abandonment. So for you to rewild, you need abandonment. And so that's sort of, they're two sides of the same coin. So because abandonment is rewilding in a very pure sense, as humans draw back and nature reclaims what once was hers. Okay, you think nature is female. It has been taking place, is currently taking place on a grand scale while no one has been watching. So we'll pause here, and so you've got this sense of the notion of abandonment. And then I've said to you that, hey, don't look at abandonment with a sanctimonious face going, oh, it's abandoned or something like that. No, you go, it's abandoned. I mean, you know, look at it with excitement, look at it with what would I say? With poetry in your eyes, you know, look at it as something exquisitely beautiful. All right, let's go have a look at the Microsoft PowerPoint slides, and I'll just quickly walk you through the slides. I've had such a blast making this PowerPoint. So if you're all ready, if you all are ready to go, then the first slide is from the movie Skyfall, and I forget, I think this is when the bad guy shoots this woman. She's currently been tied to a rock. But the interesting thing about this place is what is interesting. So I'll sort of show you the context in which this spectacular killing happens. Slide number 2 essentially is details of the research project. Slide number 3 is this handsome gentleman. We have to keep moving. Slide number 4 is an island. This is an abandoned island in Japan, and it's a Mitsubishi. There was a mine underneath this island. So they had the workers living in these apartment blocks on top, and then going down deep underneath the island to go to work. And so the black and white photograph is, you can see it when it was active. And go to slide number 5. This island served as the film set for Skyfall. So you can go ooh and ah if you want. It's spectacular. Anyway, that's a really, really exciting island. Now, the question that is in my mind, what constitutes rewilding? Or if one were to do a project on rewilding, then what shall I focus on? Or so these are some of those questions, you know, should one be doing something about flora and fauna, birds and bees, and so on and so forth? So entirely unsatisfactory. And so slide number 7 essentially talks about the notion of rewild and how does one do it. And I'm interested in keeping this question alive. Slide number 8, this is where you meet Kyle Flynn, who is the author of the book, and the book is on page 9. And on page 10 is an abandoned metro station in New York City. So the train goes by, or I don't know if the line is alive actually, but this is an abandoned train station which now sits underneath the city, but you can go and visit there as a tourist. Slide number 11 is Detroit, and on the left side is the Packard Factory. Packard was a car company or a car brand, and they had this ginormous factory. On the right side is the factory or the estate as it is today. It's abandoned. Slide number 12 is the metro, the train station in Detroit. As you can see, it's now there's a fencing around it. You can't get to it, I think, because it's a hazardous zone, but it's in the middle of the city. Slide number 13 is a theater. Detroit was, during its heyday, quite a wealthy city, but now it's not. And so this is a theater. I've got slide number 14 is a book, which I'm just putting in there saying, oh, that's interesting, isn't it? Okay. So I'm happy to respond to your reactions, or have you say something in terms of what are the thoughts that come up when you looked at these photographs? Anyone wants to have a go?
I was just wondering why Detroit is now an abandoned city, like parts are abandoned, because it seems kind of strange. I mean, it's different. I've never really seen that before, like in a city.
I'm not going to answer that question because I'm going to treat you to shock and awe. So what you do is go into YouTube, not right now, but when you want to indulge in it, go into YouTube and start looking at, say abandoned Detroit or something, and then go and have a look at it. It's ghastly. So you're talking about a city which had close to 2.5 to 3 million inhabitants, and it has shrunk to 800,000 people or something like that. And it's become a very, very dangerous place. So there's, yeah, we're not talking about Detroit, but it's not just Detroit, it's New York, every American city, the CBD has been abandoned, let's say. But New Jersey is actually not just abandoned, but New Jersey, in Cal Flynn's book, she goes to New Jersey and it's actually a hazardous zone. So it's got these sort of hazard markings, and you've got people, the police walking around making sure that you don't go onto those sites. So these huge swaths of that country are in that kind of space. There are, in my sort of wanting to do a bit of a reading, I have a few other things that I wanted to put in context. So that is Cal Flynn's writing, but in the Times, strange and wild things have happened during the pandemic. So I can sort of share these links with you guys later if you want, but if you want to go and read your own, so if you go Islands of Abandonment, book review, there's a whole bunch of different book reviews, and people have started to place this book in its context, in the COVID context. So review in the Times, strange and wild things have happened during the pandemic. Goats took to the streets of Llandudno, mooching around socially undistanced. Kangaroos bounced through downtown Adelaide. Sika deer patrolled the subway platforms of the Japanese town of Nara. And pumas padded along the quiet streets of Santiago in Chile. When humans absent themselves, every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth bounceth back. Not sure about the biblical English, but you can't choose that sort of stuff. So that's my 20 minutes in terms of introducing you to some of these images. I'm going to briefly, because I'm running a bit late as per my own timing, I'm going to take you into a slightly different kind of abandonment, which is not very relevant for rewilding, but I just threw that in as candy for you to have a look at. Because years ago, I watched this film. It's a sort of it's an artsy documentary about Italy, and it's called Unbuilt Italy. And if you're happy, we can go back to slide number 15. And it's a much awarded film. And what you're looking at in slide 15 is unfinished Italy. You're looking at a viaduct. So these viaducts are these huge concrete channels through which lots of water will flow through. But in this particular instance, they started the project, and then at some point they said, chuck it, let's not keep going. And they moved on. And so this is a goat herd or a shepherd who does an interview in that film. So it's quite a lovely scene in that interview. Slide number 16 is something, again, there was a project, a freeway on top of the ocean, which was abandoned. Slide number 17 is a train station which doesn't have any trains or tracks coming by that way. And slide number 18. Have you been watching any of the Netflix Italian series? Anybody? Just for the fun of it? No? Okay. So my reference was not going to make any sense. So this particular slide number 18 is a sports stadium, and there are some interesting scenes where there's some fights and some killings and things like that. Slide number 19 is another freeway somewhere else in Italy where the contemporary roads move somewhere else. So they've abandoned it here. And this particular person has a house on top of that freeway, and he's got a little garden happening there. And quickly running through from slide 20 onwards, there's huge parts of Australia which have been abandoned because the sort of urbanization and notion of industry and farming, etc., everything's been changing, and then people die and so on. So slide number 21 is a palatial abandoned home of a wealthy person. Number 22 is what potentially was a theatre or something. This is in Brisbane. 23 is an abandoned hospital. 24 is an example of abandoned industrial sites. You have many of these in Melbourne. And to close my talk is slide number 25, and this is Sydney. So this is a ship that's been abandoned, but now you can't do anything with that ship because it's in the mangrove. So there's a big tree or a set of trees that have grown off from it. So it's when you're a tourist next in Sydney, you can go and have a look at this. And my slide number 26 essentially is a question. Should we be rewilding, or should we go around cleaning up the mess we've made on this planet? Because, I mean, look at all that stuff, that constructed stuff that's there in Italy. And then look at Detroit. I mean, yeah, wherever you go, if you go around Australia, you'll see that there's lots of built up, abandoned stuff, abandoned roadways. And so, yeah, so we've made an amazing mess of things on this planet. And that's it for me in terms of what's going on in my head. And that's it for me in terms of, introducing you to Calflin's book. So this, just to give you a brief look into that book, she essentially goes in lots of different places. She goes to Cyprus, she goes to the United States, she does England and Scotland, and in all these places, it's really, really quite fascinating. She goes to France, and then the sites of abandonment in France, and toxic sites which have been all closed off. So places that you thought of were beautiful have dark secrets in them. Okay, Vanya, over to you.
Thank you, Soumitri. I think that was great. And that image of the ship was stunning, absolutely. I think that really puts things in perspective, so to say. What are we doing on this planet? So would you like us to do a task based on this to figure out what it is that as industrial designers we can probably think of? Do you think that's a good idea?
I think so, yeah. So Vanya has said that I could treat you all collectively as a brains trust, and that you have some whizzy software thing, and then you seem to know how to get together and do something with it. So the question to me is that you're all industrial designers, and if we were to think about not political action or legal action or environmental action, or landscape people coming and making the whole world look like a pretty garden or something. But if we stay as industrial designers, and then if you were to look at my slide number 2, which is that I actually have a rewilding research project, which I have to run for 5 years, in which I have to say that I think industrial design can make a contribution to rewilding. At this point in time, I don't know what contribution it can make, but maybe if I treat you as a brains trust, saying, hey, what do you think we ought to be doing? And you've got Miro. Apparently, you can answer your question by making a mind map. Is that Miro?
Yeah. They did one exercise on Miro last time, and I think all of them had quite a lot of fun thinking about how to look at sustainability and the ecology and things like that. So
yeah, but I'm also happy to have participate in the Q&A. I mean, I'm not. Yeah, I'm quite agnostic about. So maybe you can do a Miro later on amongst yourself, and I'd love to see the kinds of mind maps you come up with. But while I'm here for, let's say, another 20 minutes, have you got any questions to shoot at me?
Soumitri, I suppose my question would be, do you think industrial designers have a large part to play in terms of actually inventing the solutions to problems like what we see in the environment at the moment?
You should have spoken to me before I put in the grant application. I can't answer that question because I've got money and I've said that yes, we can do something. I don't know what we can do, but I think everybody can play their part. So yeah, so let's try and make that question something else. I mean, yeah, should industrial designers be getting involved in things which don't obviously look like industrial design? My answer to that is yes, absolutely. You ought to go out and do stuff. You have a duty to contribute to make the world a better place. Okay, I think I should. All right, Benjamin.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what do you think would be the way that we, like, as humanity, should head in terms of, should we promote rewilding, or should we turn to the abandoned sites and try to restore them?
I mean, we don't have the option of asking those kinds of questions. Should we be doing the rewilding? So rewilding's been going on. There are people around the world doing the rewilding. But what's beautiful about Cal Flynn's book is that she says, even if you don't do it, the minute you walk away, they, which is the plants and animals, are going to rewild, which is the, you know, the mangrove in Sydney, where it will, this is the innate sort of outcome. What is possible is it will get rewilded. So we don't have that option. In terms of the other one, should we go around cleaning up? I thought we ought to. I mean, if your backyard was full of rubbish, you know, essentially we're talking about hard rubbish, and we just walk away from it. Shouldn't we go back and do something about it? But, you know, the biggest hard rubbish dump is the bombed out country of Syria and now of Yemen. So you have, you know, millions of tons of rubble in various parts of the world. We don't have enough money to go around cleaning it up. Oh, but it should be lovely. And why not go around cleaning it up? And find, and what would we do with all that concrete? Come on. Take all the concrete and put them on spacecraft and send them to Mars or something like that. Yeah. I'm sorry I showed you the world. That planet that you lived in is not a beautiful place, but full of rubble and rubbish. Yeah, so that's where we are. Anything else that... Have you got any irrelevant stuff to ask or say or offer as a comment? What's all that smiling about, Saskia? Please reveal. Your
A lot of background noise.
okay, you might need to start. I think your mic is doing funny things. But thanks for all the white noise, like a Daft Punk concert or something, electronic music. Somebody put their hand up, I think, wasn't it? No.
Oh, can I say something?
If you have a mouth and a desire, yes.
Well, it's not a question, but I think there's some things that we abandoned that we should leave where they are.
Yeah.
Like where I'm from in Australia, because I just moved here to Melbourne.
From?
We have like sunken ships from when we didn't have like the technology to like take ships out of the ocean.
Yeah.
And like we have corals that have grown all over it, and created like a new ecosystem, and it's like really cool to go and see. I have like heaps of photos and stuff. Yeah.
So that's you're talking about the fact that those ships have got rewilded or something.
Yeah.
I'm just using that word. I've got to put rewilding into every sentence.
Yeah.
So when things get rewilded, you shouldn't go around messing it up. Yeah. You should only mess up greenfield sites, wild sites. Dig them up and make mines. Yes.
Can I just add on to what Jessica said? And also because you mentioned before, Soumitri, I'm pretty sure it was a rhetorical question, whether or not we should, as humans, remove our structures and stuff if we're not using them. But I think that's kind of just what nature does, is naturally it'll just sort of consume or take over what we kind of left, and eventually, even if we don't get rid of it, it kind of just becomes its own thing, which I think is a really interesting thing to think about.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's an interesting thing to think about. I would sort of, I'm putting on my research hat, saying we can be sort of naive, saying, it's going to get wilded by itself, which is why that Japanese island is there. Have you watched Skyfall? How do I pronounce your name? Herjian.
That was really close, actually. Herjian.
Herjian?
Yeah.
So Herjian, have you watched Skyfall?
No, I haven't.
Will you watch it tonight, please?
Sure, yeah, I think I have it somewhere.
Yeah. I should ask for a commission from the makers of the James Bond movie. But please, everyone, go watch Skyfall. And when that scene comes, watch it not for the movie, but for the fact that you were there and are looking at an abandoned site. Yeah, not all abandoned sites can serve as movie sets, and not all abandoned sites become something. I mean, one of the interesting things about Kaufland's book is she says that, this thing that we call pristine nature, is there any pristine nature anywhere at all? And I went, oh my God, really? I thought the Amazon forests or the Antarctic or somewhere there is some notion of pristinity. She says, no, you come with me and I'll show you that, humans have been there and done the mess that they do. Yeah, but a while ago.
I just wanted to bring up the point about the fact that you've just mentioned how humans have made a mess, and I just remembered back when I was watching a video, and it was about reaching the bottom of the Mariana Trench,
Oh,
and a place that's never before been touched by humans.
yes.
And yet, when they get down there, they find plastic bottles, Coca-Cola bottles. They find human, waste down at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, a place that's never actually been physically touched by a human, and yet we've still had an impact on it.
How spectacular. Okay, Benjamin, just a point of fact. If it's a bottle, it'll float. If it's a Coke bottle.
Yeah, I think it
Well,
was
it's concrete.
I think it was glass bottles.
I'm just
wasn't it?
nitpicking, but it's a thing that came to my mind saying, Coke bottles, Mariana Trench. But I know what you mean. There may be guns and bombs and bits of concrete and stuff that didn't Cameron, what's the guy's name? The Avatar guy.
James Cameron.
James Cameron. Didn't he go down there? He went somewhere in that capsule that the Australians made for him.
Yeah, I think he went down in his like custom-made submarine, and it's like a green vertical-looking submarine, and yeah, he went down it from what I remember.
Absolutely. And you are?
I'm Greg.
Okay. Videoless Greg. Lovely to have met you.
Can you see my face now?
I can.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, but you don't have ears.
Oh, it's over here.
No, because you're using a blurry backgroundy thing.
Yeah, my room is a little bit messy.
It's interesting. For me, the rewilding project sort of gives you a different location from which to look at this whole sort of, everybody is so obsessed about cities and what is, food waste in Australia. It's like a really big thing. And I'm sure many of you have got keep cups and things like that. So, so in a sense, it sort of gives a new meaning or, gives you new case studies or new vantage points from which you can talk about people polishing their halos. And you've got that pink bag that's arrived in your house. There's one that came in our house last week, for you to discard your clothes. You've got one of those? Yeah. Please go ahead and discard them, because you know what happens with clothes that you discard? Do you know what happens to clothes that you discard? I'm sure you think some really good things happen. But the interesting thing about clothes that you discard is because you discard clothes because you need to make clothes and new sneakers and all that. But those ships that bring those containers that bring sneakers that you buy, when they go back from Australia, they go back empty. And so they need to be filled, because a very large container ship with lots of empty containers will, doesn't have enough weight in it. So these containers need to be filled with stuff. I mean, they can be filled with things like stolen cars and stolen equipment, and then drugs shaped like lollies or whatever. But they can be certainly filled with clothes that you discard. And then on the other side, if you look and do your Google search, you can see that acerbic me is coming out. You can do a Google search of clothes being sold on the streets in the poorer parts of Ghana or some country like that. And you'll see that you are playing a part in an ecological destabilization or an economic destabilization by taking away the livelihoods of potential tailors and people who can repair clothes or wash clothes by dumping secondhand clothes and stealing the livelihoods from the women in certain other parts of the world. So now you know what to do when you get that pink bag. You have to sit with it and say, what does this mean? So just to come back to rewilding. Rewilding is a problematic space. There's no right way. Whatever you do is wrong. And we have a project where we're talking about rewilding only in cities. So when I'm not doing the project, I'm sitting there saying, I'm sure thinking about rewilding cities, there's something completely wrong about it. Okay. Have I focused too much on the pointlessness of doing anything about the environment? You're the young, idealistic types. Come on, refute all that stuff. Saying you're just old, go and die somewhere. stop messing up the situation. There you're Lauren. Hey, just off the record, when I accosted you yesterday saying, I haven't seen your face, you freaked out. Stop freaking out. They're just nice people everywhere.
It was just the tone you used. I wasn't sure
I've
whether
got many different tones. Lauren, stop freaking out. Yeah, but no, she's my favorite person, by the way, because unlike the rest of you who are complete waste of space and have no humanity and you don't know what it means to be gracious, she responded and said, I love it that you shared the photos of the cats or something like that. So she gave me a hug, an electronic hug. And the rest of you, so self-involved. What happened there, Jungwan? There was a
I just
hand
gave a
that
clap.
hit on your face.
I just gave a clap for that
Oh.
warm hug.
Okay, I don't know how to do these things with Teams. Yeah.
You can hover your mouse over that emoji thing and then.
Okay, Benjamin, I get it. Yeah. No, I'm sorry, I'm not going to. Oh, I like that. Yeah. Thank you, Henrietta. Heinze. I love your names. I've typed your names out so many times, making bloody class lists. And to put faces to those names is quite interesting. Okay. Are we just going to keep using up Vanya's very serious teaching time talking about useless trash ladders? No. Okay. Maybe there's a competition open now for you to write me emails or Teams messages to outdo Lauren. Yeah. So that's a project. Let's outdo Lauren by saying lovely things to Soumitri about the things he's done. You can be a banana bread hater or the polenta bake hater. Did you guys finish all the spring rolls? Any of you were there in the spring rolls class? No one? Okay. That's somebody else. All right. Are you all in your first 6 months or are you all in your second 6 months? What is it, Amelia? You can't shake number 1. 3. Yeah, you're such a fail, Henrietta. You should be ashamed of yourself. Okay. I think I should leave now. Okay, so rewilding is a very serious issue, and there's millions of dollars being spent around the world in rewilding our cities because our cities have got too much concrete and it's not a nice place for bees. I have a problem, a rewilding problem, which I might ask you to have a look at. So you know how I've actually been, I broke down my boundary wall and my whole front yard and backyard is getting rewilded because I went a bit crazy. And then I said, I want lots of bees. So I made a bee hotel. I'm going to show you my bee hotel, which is not being populated by the bees. Unless it is. So this is my bee hotel. Okay. Okay, don't call it a block of wood with holes in it. I'll kill you. But it's a bee hotel. But then I've discovered that real bees have landed up. Can you see that?
Is that their beehive?
They're making a beehive. They're making 2 beehives.
Do you have spiders in the bee hotel?
Do I have spiders in the bee hotel? I think I do. Yeah. So now I've got a problem, you know. If I have to polish my halo, I've got to allow these bees to live here. But I don't want them to build a ginormous hive and do nasty things and come into the house and bite me and things like that. So I'm thinking I'll kill them all. I might, destroy their hive before too many of them come. So while at work, I'm doing rewilding, but at home, I'm going to eat some chicken. I'm going to have some sausages. I'm going to kill some bees. And it's really hard. It's really hard to be a good person. It's really hard to do rewilding. And on that note, I'm going to say sayonara. Vanya, can I leave it there? Don't do the Miro project or whatever unless you want to. Okay. But I think it's more important that you send me messages on Teams saying how warm and cuddly I've been to you in the first 2 weeks. Okay?
Great.
And that's called Project Lauren.
Am I also allowed to participate, Soumitri?
No, you're not. You're not in your first 6 months. No. Yeah. Hey, before I go, have you guys gone and looked at the My First 6 Months website? Thank you, Amelia. Maybe in the chat you can go and put a link to their website for the rest of you. I've spent a lot of time and energy putting content in their website. All right? It's to make you more awesome. If you watch all the videos that are there, A, you'll become really old, but B, you might become awesome. A little bit awesomer than you already are. There are 2 websites. I should probably go and nudge you in Canvas saying, hey, have you taken those websites and put them on your phone? Because if you haven't, then I'm going to cry. See, you can do something like that. You go and download it onto your phone. All right. I love that you're wearing the exact Zoli. I had to go and wash this stuff so that what is on that. You guys, thank you, Zoli. Thank you for noticing. I think what she's referring to is slide number 3 in the PowerPoint. Can you please go and have a look at that? Yeah, he's a designer. In the face, you're not going to have, there's no cognitive dissonance possible. He's really the same guy, same shirt, same everything. Identity check, tick. All right, Vanya, I'm going to let go and disappear.
Thank you so much, Soumitri. I think that was fantastic. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Cheers, Soumitri.
Thank you.
See you all. I'll keep seeing you over the months and the years, for the next bloody 4 years. All right? Catch you here and there. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Guys, should we meet again after 10 minutes on the general class? On the general one, yeah? After 10 minutes. So it's 2:50, we meet at 3. Yeah? Cool. See you.